Maybe you are also lying in bed right now, staring at the ceiling, wondering who the person sleeping next to you really is. Maybe you also see the little changes, the phone that's never left alone, the new password, the distant look, and you feel that cold knot of doubt tightening in your stomach. If you know that feeling, then you understand why I did what I did. My name is David. I built a perfect lie to catch my wife's perfect truth. And what I found, it didn't just break my heart, it shattered my entire world. They say you should never meet your heroes. Let me tell you, you should never secretly test your wife. For 7 years, I had it all. The house, the career, the beautiful wife, Sarah. We were that couple. The one with the inside jokes. The one who could talk without words. I truly believed we were unbreakable. The kind of love you see in movies, but then, the script changed. And no one gave me my lines. It wasn't a fight. It was a quiet drift. A silence that grew louder than any scream. The phone, always face down. The quick errands that took 2 hours. The new work friend she mentioned a little too much. My brain told me, David, you're being paranoid. You're going to ruin a good thing if you don't stop. But my heart knew a different story. And that's when I decided to stop guessing. I decided to build a trap. A scenario so real, so terrifying, that it would force her true colors to show. What would you do if you discovered your entire life was a lie? Don't go anywhere, because what happened next, you will not believe. Like this video and subscribe right now. This story is a warning you need to hear. You're going to laugh. But the first thing I ever really noticed about Sarah was her laugh. It wasn't one of those quiet, polite laughs. It was this full-bodied thing that would take over a room. I used to tell stupid jokes just to hear it. That was my secret hobby, and she knew it. That's who we were. We had this whole language of our own. A squeeze of the hand meant, I'm getting tired, let's leave this party. Leaving the porch light on meant, I'm thinking of you, drive safe. It was the small things, you know? The tiny silent gears that made our whole world turn. We built a life. A good one. We'd spend Saturdays at the farmer's market, arguing over which tomatoes looked best. Sunday mornings were for crossword puzzles and coffee that was too strong. It was comfortable. It was safe. I thought it was permanent, but then the gears started to grind. It was nothing you could point to. Not at first. It was a feeling. The air in the house just felt different. She started listening to a new kind of music in the car, something I'd never heard her play before. She bought a new perfume, a new brand of coffee for her morning cup. Small things, innocent things. But when you build a life with someone, you know their blueprint. And I started to see subtle, unauthorized renovations. She'd be texting, and a tiny smile would touch her lips. But when I walked into the room, the smile would vanish and the phone would go dark. Click. Face down on the couch. Every time, then came the late nights. Just catching up on work, she'd say. The project is in its final phase. She'd come home at 8, then 9, then sometimes almost 10. The dinners I cooked would be cold on the table. She'd apologize, of course. She'd say she was sorry with all the right words, but her eyes were somewhere else entirely. They were already back at the office, with that project, or with that person who made her smile at her phone. I'd lie awake next to her, listening to her breathe, and I'd try to remember the last time that laugh, her real laugh, had filled our house. I couldn't. The silence between us wasn't just quiet anymore. It was loud, and it was asking me a question I was too afraid to answer. So I did what any sane, loving husband would do. I started to go a little crazy, but quietly, you know, privately. I became a detective in my own life, and let me tell you, I was a terrible one. I'd pick up her phone when she left the room, just to feel the weight of it. The screen would light up, and that lock screen, a picture of us from a happier time, would just stare back at me, accusing me. I never unlocked it. I couldn't. What kind of monster snoops through his wife's phone? A guilty one. A paranoid one. I hated the man I was becoming. I started looking for clues everywhere. I'd check the mileage on her car. I'd casually smell her clothes when she came home. Like a bloodhound, searching for a scent of another man's cologne. Or a restaurant she said she'd never been to. I found nothing. No lipstick on the collar. No mysterious receipts. Nothing. And the nothingness was the worst part. Because the doubt, it's a weed. It doesn't need proof to grow. It just needs a little crack in your foundation, and it will tear your whole house down. I'd have these arguments with myself in the shower. One part of my brain, let's call him logical David, would say, she's working hard. She's tired. You're going to destroy the best thing in your life because you're insecure. But the other part, the part I was starting to hate, let's call him paranoid David, he would whisper, or, you're the only one not in on the joke. She's not tired from work. She's tired from keeping up the lie. The silence in our house got so loud I couldn't think. I couldn't read. I couldn't do anything but sit and watch her, studying her every move, looking for a sign. Was I a fool for trusting her? Or was I a fool for not trusting my own gut? I was trapped. If I asked her, "Are you cheating on me?" and I was wrong, I'd be handing her a grenade. I'd be the jealous, controlling husband who saw ghosts. The trust would be gone forever. But if I was right, and I did nothing, I was just a coward, waiting for her to finally leave me for good. I was stuck between being a villain and being a fool, and I had to make a choice. That's when I realized I couldn't live in the question anymore. I needed an answer, but asking her directly was a lose-lose game. So I decided to stop asking, and start testing. I needed a scenario, a crisis. Not a small one, no. Something big enough, terrifying enough, that it would cut through all the polite lies and the comfortable masks. It had to be a situation where her true instincts would take over, where I would see once and for all if she was my partner in life, or just a tenant in my house. I called it projection, because I was going to project a fictional disaster onto our lives and see what it revealed. The plan was simple, and in its own way, kind of brilliant. I created a ghost, a man named Mark. Mark was a senior compliance officer at my firm. A guy so high up, you'd never actually meet him. I used my burner phone, the one I used for fantasy football, and I became Mark. The crisis? I was going to be accused of corporate espionage, of selling company secrets to a rival, a career-ending, life-destroying accusation. I would tell Sarah that an internal investigation was looming, that I was the prime suspect, and that we could lose everything. The house, the savings, everything we'd built, think about it. A real partner, when faced with that kind of fire, grabs a bucket. They rally, they say, "We'll get a lawyer, we'll fight this, I'm with you." But someone who's already checked out, someone with one foot out the door, their first thought is to save themselves from the blast. I set the stage. I came home looking like I'd seen a ghost. I didn't eat, I paced. I let her see the stress for 2 whole days. I was setting the hook, nice and slow, and then the final piece. I had Mark send a text. I made sure she was sitting right next to me on the couch when my phone buzzed. I picked it up, my hand shaking just a little. Not too much, just enough. I let my face go pale. I took a deep breath and I turned to her. The trap was set. The clock was ticking. And all I had to do was watch my wife's face as I told her our life was about to explode. For 2 days, I lived inside the performance. It was exhausting. I'd come home from work and just deflate. I'd slump into a chair at the kitchen table and stare at the wall. "Rough day?" Sarah asked the first night, barely looking up from her book. "You could say that," I said, my voice heavy. "Just corporate drama. It's nothing. That's the key, you see. You don't dump the whole story at once. You let the worry marinate. You let them come to you." The next day I was worse. I pretended a phone call from my lawyer had me spooked. I was quiet during dinner. I pushed my food around the plate. "You're really not yourself, David," she said. And for a second, I saw a flicker of the old concern in her eyes. It almost broke me. It felt so real. "Is it that project you were worried about?" The hook was set. She was biting. It's bigger than a project, Sarah," I said, rubbing my temples like a man carrying the weight of the world. "I can't really talk about it. Not yet. I just need to get my head around it." I went to bed early, leaving her downstairs. I could hear the soft murmur of the TV, but I knew she wasn't watching it. She was thinking. I had planted the seed of the crisis in her mind, and now I was letting it grow in the dark. The silence from her side of the bed that night was different. It wasn't the cold, distant silence from before. It was a curious silence, a waiting silence. She was in the trap now. She just didn't know the walls were about to close in. The next evening, I made my move. I waited until we were both on the couch, the same as always. But this time I had the burner phone in my pocket. My heart was hammering against my ribs so hard I was sure she could hear it. Right on schedule, it buzzed. I pulled it out, my hands deliberately shaking. I let her see the screen light up with the name Mark. I took a sharp, quiet breath. The kind you take when you get bad news. "What is it?" Sarah asked, her voice tight. "Who's Mark?" I didn't answer right away. I just stared at the phone, letting the silence stretch out, letting the tension build. Then I slowly put the phone down and looked at her. I made sure my eyes were wide, a little wild. "It's not nothing anymore," I said, my voice barely a whisper. They think I stole company data. They're calling it corporate espionage." I watched her face. I saw the confusion first, then the slow dawning of understanding. "What are you talking about?" "That's insane! You would never—" "I know!" I cut her off, my voice rising with a practiced panic. "But it doesn't matter what's true. It matters what they can prove. Mark says the evidence is— It's bad, Sarah. It looks bad. My lawyer, he's talking about federal charges. He's talking about us losing everything." I let that word hang in the air. Everything. I saw it hit her. Not like a wave of grief, but like a physical blow. She actually flinched. "Losing? What does that mean?" she asked, her voice now small and cold. "It means the house, our savings, my career. It's all gone if this goes through." I reached for her hand, a desperate, theatrical gesture. We could be ruined, and that's when I saw it. The moment I was waiting for. Her eyes. They didn't lock with mine in solidarity. They didn't well up with tears. They darted. Away from my face, towards the window, towards the door, like she was calculating the exits. She pulled her hand back, just slightly, but enough. The partner I hoped was still in there should have been grabbing my hand, telling me we'd fight this together. But she was just receding, pulling back behind a wall. The trap had sprung, and I had my first terrible answer. She didn't say anything for a long time. She just sat there, perfectly still, while my words, my lies, hung in the air between us like a poison cloud. I could almost see the calculations running behind her eyes, the math of our disaster. "Okay," she finally said, her voice flat and strangely calm. "Okay, let's not panic. Let's not panic. Not 'this is crazy.' Not 'we'll get through this.' Not 'I believe you.' Just, let's not panic." It was the most terrifyingly neutral thing she could have said. She stood up and started clearing the coffee table, moving with a robotic efficiency. She picked up her empty glass. My empty glass. Avoiding my eyes the whole time. "We'll need to be smart about this," she said, more to herself than to me. I should make some calls in the morning." "Calls?" I asked, playing the confused husband. "What calls?" "To who?" "Just calls," she said, waving a dismissive hand. She was already building her life raft, and I could see there was only room for one. "We need to think about practicalities." And then she walked out of the room. Just like that. She left me sitting there in the wreckage of our fictional crisis. I heard her go upstairs, and a moment later, the soft click of our bedroom door closing. I sat alone in the silence I had tried so hard to fill with my dramatic lie, and it was louder than ever. The knot of doubt in my stomach wasn't a knot anymore. It was a cold, hard stone. The parasite of suspicion had finally grown up. It was now a full-grown monster, and it was staring back at me from the empty space where my wife had just been. She wasn't going to fight for me. She was already gone. For 2 days, we lived in that awful, quiet tension. She moved around the house like a ghost, speaking in short, practical sentences. "Have you heard from your lawyer? What are the next steps? Never, 'this will be okay.' Never, 'I'm here for you.' On the 3rd day, I came home early. I told her I had a meeting with my legal team, but I didn't. I parked down the street and I waited. An hour later, I saw her car pull out of our driveway. She was dressed differently, not in her casual clothes. She looked professional, purposeful. I followed her. My hands were slick on the steering wheel. I felt like a character in a bad movie, but the fear was absolutely real. She didn't drive to a cafe. She didn't meet some mysterious man. She drove to a sleek, glass-fronted office building in the center of town. I watched her walk inside, and I saw the sign on the door. Lawrence and Sondheim, Family Law. a divorce lawyer. The air left my lungs. I sat there in my car, staring at that sign until the words blurred. She wasn't looking for a defense attorney for me. She was securing one for herself. I drove home, my mind numb. I went straight to her laptop. She'd gotten sloppy, confident in her new mission. It wasn't even locked. Her email was open. And there it was, the sent folder, an email to her sister with the subject, Nightmare Scenario. My fingers were trembling as I clicked it. Janet, it's worse than I thought. David is being investigated for something huge at work. They're saying he stole data. We could lose everything. The house, our savings, all of it. I can't go down with this ship. I met with a lawyer today. I have to protect myself and what's left. I should have done this months ago. I can't believe I married a man who would be so stupid. I read those last lines over and over. I can't go down with this ship. I can't believe I married a man who would be so stupid. The trap had worked perfectly. It had shown me her true self, and her true self was a stranger who saw me as a sinking ship, and her only thought was to swim away. I didn't say a word when she got home. I just sat at the kitchen table, her laptop closed in front of me. She walked in, her heels clicking on the floor, and stopped when she saw me. "You're home early," she said, her voice careful. "The meeting was canceled," I said. My own voice was calm, empty. "How was your day? Do anything interesting?" She froze for just a second, a tiny crack in her mask. "No, just errands." I pushed the laptop toward her. "I found your email to Janet." The color drained from her face. It was like watching a switch flip. The careful composure shattered, replaced by a raw, furious panic. "You went through my computer? You spied on me?" "I built you a lie to get a little truth," I said, standing up. "And you built yourself a life raft and were ready to push me overboard. I can't go down with this ship. Sarah, really?" The fury in her eyes was hotter than I'd ever seen. There was no guilt, no shame, just rage that she'd been caught. "You set me up. You lied to me." "To see if you were lying to me," I shot back, my voice finally rising. "And you were." "Not with another man, maybe, but with your heart. You checked out months ago. My fake crisis was just the excuse you were looking for." She stared at me, her chest heaving. The fight went out of her all at once, replaced by a cold, weary resignation. "Yes," she said, her voice flat. "Yes, I was. I've been unhappy for a long time. I was trying to find the courage to leave. Your little stunt just made it easier." There it was. The final, unvarnished truth, stripped of all its pretty lies. She wasn't sorry for what she'd planned. She was sorry she hadn't been smarter about it. The woman I loved was gone. In her place was a strategist who saw our marriage as a problem to be solved, and me as a liability to be managed. So, what do you do when the person you built your life with becomes a stranger? You dismantle the life. Piece by painful piece, we sold the house, the one with the porch light I used to leave on for her. I packed my things into boxes, and it felt like I was boxing up a ghost. The photos, the stupid souvenirs from our trips, the coffee mugs that were a matching set, it all went into storage. Or to the curb, I found a small apartment. It's quiet. There are no inside jokes here. No silent signals. The silence is just silence. And sometimes that's a relief. People ask what happened. I give them the simple version. We grew apart. It's easier than explaining that I built a trap, caught my wife in it, and then had to live with the fact that I was capable of such a thing. I set out to prove she was a liar, and in the process, I became a master manipulator. I wanted to catch her in a lie, and I succeeded, and my reward is this hollow victory. I learned that the truth isn't always a gift. Sometimes it's a bomb, and when it goes off, it doesn't just destroy the lie, it destroys the foundation of everything. It destroys the man you thought you were. I got my answer. I know her true intentions, but I lost the memory of our love. Because now when I look back, I don't know what was real and what was just practice. So what's the lesson in all this? Be careful what you go looking for in the dark. You might not survive what you find. What would you have done? Was I a cunning husband uncovering the truth, or a jealous fool who destroyed his own marriage? Let me know in the comments. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, subscribe for more tales about the shadows that live in the human heart.